Warning, the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in the show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCam, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome back to America's Ass. We're on episode 56. I have been filming for 4 months straight. This election has been exhausting. I'm incredibly tired. But we're doing one more show, then I get to take a break for a few months. And I'll be happy, because it's one less thing on my plate. But I'm here, and I'm happy to be here. And I have 3 guests today. I'm here with Representative John Potucek, Representative Valerie McDonnell, and Representative-elect, he will be a representative in 2-3 weeks, James Thibault. So, please take a minute to introduce yourselves. Start with you.
Hi, Derry. John Potucek, one of your 10 state reps. I live down on Sunset Ave in Sunset Acres and South Range School area. So I'm on Facebook. You want to talk to me? You can talk to me any way you want. Thank you much.
Hi, my name's Valerie McDonnell. I represent Rockingham 25, which is my hometown of Salem, so not too far away. Glad to be back on this show for a second time, so thank you, Anthony, for having me, and John and James as well. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is James Thibault. I'm the representative-elect for Merrimack County District 25, which is the city of Franklin and the town of Northfield. It's my second time on the show as well, and I'm happy to be back, Anthony.
Thank you all for being on. We have a very diverse group today, geographically and with thought. So I want to start with you two first. Valerie, you've been on for 1 term now.
Yes.
Gonna be 2. Well, you've been reelected, but your term hasn't really started yet.
Yeah.
And you're about to have your first term.
Yeah.
So what's it like to be young legislators?
Do you want to take that first?
Oh, me, okay. Starting things off. I think it's a very interesting experience, and I like working from some of my colleagues that are older and do have more experience as well. I like to think I can teach them something as well and have more direct impact with younger voters as well. But I like to think of myself as a representative, people of all ages, not just younger people.
Yeah, I really like that, and I think it's true. I think that there are a lot of younger voters who are not really motivated to go out and vote because they don't really see themselves represented. I've had texts from so many constituents of mine who are 18, 19, 20 who have said, you know, I've been able to vote before, but I haven't, but I went out and voted for you. And it really means a lot to hear that. But at the same time, I want to be able to provide a perspective in Concord that's new and fresh to these people who may not have heard it before, whether it's on education policy or substance misuse for young people or other things that they might not think about in the same way that I do. And, you know, I've worked in Concord on the Legislative Youth Advisory Council for 4 years, but now this is going to be a much more direct way of making a difference, and I look forward to representing my constituents that way.
And I think a lot of older voters also like having younger representatives as well because it gives them hope in their own way.
It depends. So there are some that are, most I would say, that are very excited about it and they love to see it, especially at the doors. They'll see me come up and they'll say, "Oh, who are you working for?" Myself. And they'll be like, "Oh, okay." And they get really excited and they'll ask all these questions, and I love talking to them. But then there are some others who are a little more skeptical, and I understand that. And I think it just really takes talking to them for a few minutes, articulating policy and showing them I'm just as qualified to be here as anyone else.
And I would add to that too, Salem has 5 polling locations, one of which is our senior center, and that's the most populated. So that community definitely turns out to vote.
It's a lot better than Derry. We have 1 polling location.
I've
And
heard
we're
about
a
that.
few thousand residents more than Salem. You have 3, I believe, in Franklin.
Yes, we have 3 polling places in Franklin for about 9,000 people total. Not sure if it's the most effective system, but it's what we work with.
And a lot of people don't realize it, but Derry is the largest polling location in the United States.
Wow.
We have 1 polling location for the entire town of Derry. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. And we had the youngest state representative in the United States in Valley.
Yeah, and I am going to be replaced shortly by someone to my left.
Yeah. Although you're still the youngest in New Hampshire history, so you can at least keep that.
I guess, yes.
Yeah, but because I think I'm like fifth, so I'll take it. But yeah, I mean it's super cool to be able to serve so young, and it's I have friends from other states who come to me and they say they're inspired to see other young people, and it's really something that can only happen in New Hampshire because we have such a large legislature, such a representative legislature, that it makes it easy to just go to your neighbors and say, can I ask or can I have your vote? That you can't really do in other states. So I think the average House campaign here in New Hampshire is like $5 to $7 grand. I personally spent around $3. But in a state like Texas, it's around $150,000, which is not realistic for an 18-year-old to be able to raise, even though in theory an 18-year-old could run in Texas.
I did not know we were the largest polling location in America.
Yes, we are.
That's really interesting.
One single polling location for the entire town of, 37,000 people?
34,000 people, and I believe there's 19,000 or 20,000 registered voters.
Yep.
So,
And when they went back to Pinkerton, everybody was happy because we got our number one back again.
yeah, we had switched to the church on Hampstead Road.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was not the best place, as we have found out in snowstorms.
2 hours to go 1 mile
Ooh,
down the road. That was not good.
wet, slushy snow.
So, switching topics, what's this next term going to look like? We've talked about it the last few episodes with David Love and David Love Lynn, almost the same name. And, we've talked about what it's going to look like up at the State House these next 2 years. It's going to be really good for us. We're going to have a Republican governor again, the Executive Council, Senate, House, all Republican. So, what do you think it's going to look like? What do you think are some bills that'll come up? And how's the rest of the leadership race going to shake up with the majority leader? That's another hot topic.
Well, personally, I'm excited. I've yet to serve in a majority of this size. And I was just talking before to Representative Potucek, and you were saying that now each committee is going to have 11 Republicans to 9 Democrats. And I was on the Education Committee, very contentious, 10 to 10, almost everything, well, felt like it some days, everything coming out, no recommendation. So what's the point of the committee work when it just goes again to the House floor? So I'm excited to really get some education policy passed. I've already filed an LSR for universal eligibility to the Education Freedom Account program. I think that's really important, so personally that's my priority this term. And I'm hoping we could get that to the governor's desk. And I have heard that Governor-elect Ayotte will sign this, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking as an incoming first-term rep, being able to work in the majority for my first term, I'm really excited. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity to, like Valerie said, get EFAs passed, but also other priorities in the education field that Republicans have been trying for a while, especially when it comes to civics education, getting more requirements passed when it comes to making sure students understand our structure of government as well as our history and the history of the world when it comes to things like the horrors of communism and things like that that have been previously struck down because of the tight majority. So I'm hoping that we can see more education curriculum reform as well.
Well, I've signed on to 8 LSRs, which are the precursor to a bill. About 3 or 4 of them, at one time or another, I was the prime sponsor. But other people that were co-sponsors at the time picked up the ball, and they wanted to be the prime sponsors. So I am now a co-sponsor on some of the bills. One of them is the veterans bill that I was prime sponsor on last time, which made it to the Senate, but the Senate and the House could not agree. So there's another one on sanctuary cities, which at one time I was prime sponsor. Now I'm co-sponsor on it, and now that we have the majority and the supermajority in the Senate, I'm quite sure our governor is going to sign it, because that was one of her election points about immigration control, the northern border, sanctuary cities. That's kind of all rolled up into one bundle. And there's some other smaller bills for, I know it was when an election. I forget what the other two are, but I'm sure if I look on my list, I can figure out where I was and whether I co-sponsored on it before or I was a prime sponsor on it before. Because a lot of the reps who have been around, like I have, a few terms, we talk about these things, and I'm going to do this. Would you be wanting to be co-sponsor for me? Sure. And as you get into the House deeper and deeper and deeper, which you will, you'll get into that thing where you're known by what you do and who you know, and it's assumed that by the people knowing who you are and what you've stood for before, they will ask you to co-sponsor bills, which will be along your priority list. So I don't tend to put in bills the first year because that's the budget year. And some reps do, some reps don't. But I typically see what's going on the first year, and I take notes of what bills I want to put in for the second year. And then come next year, this time, I have a whole list, or 2 years from now, next year, yeah, I'll be putting in new bills for the second year of the biennium.
And interesting that you brought up sanctuary cities. I don't know how many people saw, but Los Angeles just voted to become a sanctuary city.
They weren't already?
The city council officially voted on record to become a sanctuary
Of course,
city.
they're bluer than blue.
Yeah.
That's true, but I'm glad that it's on the priorities, and I'm glad that there's an
it is a
LSR.
priority list.
Why wasn't that? I know we had a tight majority, but why was that not done last term?
There's some people who I know that just don't like it for whatever their reasoning is. And there's some Republicans that don't like it because they say it encroaches upon certain freedoms. But the thing is, the freedoms are not for the citizens. These people are not citizens. They haven't earned the right to be a citizen yet. So therefore, the Americans' freedoms that we have as citizens may or may not apply to a non-citizen.
And one last topic on the State House. Again, this is another very contentious topic that's going to come up in a few weeks. Who's going to be the majority leader?
All right. Well,
no one knows.
I'll say it. It's going to be Sharon Packard.
No, majority leader, not speaker.
Oh, the majority. Oh, the majority leader. I'm not going to say anything because I know too much.
And I know nothing, so.
I will stay out of this as well.
Well, the audience can pick up a cue. So we just had our election, and I brought this up the last couple episodes, and I'll bring it up again. What was everyone's thoughts on the national level?
The national?
National level. With everything, with the presidential, the Congress races, all that.
I thought Trump was going to win. I just was not expecting by that much and so quickly. I thought it was going to be at least a day or two until we had a final result. But I'm very pleased that it went much quicker than that. In terms of the House, that took too long. We didn't know the House majority for sure for like a week and a half. I think that presents some concerns for election integrity in the states that took so long to count. And I think that needs to be addressed. For the Senate, well, we're still arguing over what's going on in Pennsylvania. And I think that's really concerning. The fact that we have all these mail-in ballots that were either improperly signed or improperly dated. And now they're trying to count them even though the Supreme Court said that they can't be counted. Could that happen in New Hampshire? How do we stop that from happening? I think that's something that we need to explore and ensure we protect our elections.
Yeah, some good points made. I have been on Team Trump for quite a while now, so I can't say I was surprised. And I was excited to see the result, especially in states you mentioned like Pennsylvania, to see the voter registration drives in Lancaster and the Amish communities as well, to see the diverse citizens that come out to support Trump. I think that's what took me by surprise, but positively. So definitely very excited to see the results. I'm not surprised he didn't win New Hampshire, although I was hoping he would.
Although it was very close. It was like 2.9%.
Yeah,
Which,
it's not
It
as
narrowed
close as
down
it has been,
than
yeah.
but
it narrowed down further than when they originally called it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Afterward,
Let's
went from like 5 to 2.5, like you said.
yeah, let this be a lesson that New Hampshire is a swing state and we should be paid attention to after the first in the nation primary.
oh, definitely. And I think the campaign did pay
First in the
attention
nation
to us
primary.
because I know Senator Vance, or Vice President elect, he had a rally in the 11th hour in Derry, actually. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think they definitely paid attention to New Hampshire. New Hampshire is still in play for future presidential years.
I was not disappointed, but I was that the top of the ticket in New Hampshire was blue, which was not President Trump and not Representative Prescott and not CD2. But I was very happy that Derry and Rockingham County did go red,
Yep.
despite the right coast of the Portsmouth, Stratham, that type of area over there, that has been getting bluer and bluer. I actually at the polls predicted that Trump would take New Hampshire by 1%. I only predicted Kelly at 6%, and she pulled better than 10. And I had a feeling that Pappas was going to take CD1, but not by the margin that he had taken it by. I was glad he didn't take as much of a margin. Prescott put up a good, honest fight and got a lot of votes. And CD2, Goodlander versus Lily.
Williams.
I like Lily. I know Lily. She was great. But Goodlander just came in with 10 tons of money. She's an out-of-stater. She didn't live in Nashua. She lives in an apartment that she rented just for the election. And her parents, shame on them. They should have taught her better, because the Tamposies are rock-solid Republicans. And she just never learned her lesson the right way.
I agree. I did think that both of our Congress seats would go blue. CD2 was closer than I thought it would be.
Yes.
And CD1 was not as close as I thought it would be. And you said Pennsylvania. I know that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania did just say to stop counting ballots.
Mhm.
They said that the other day.
But the counties are defying it.
They are. The governor has actually, Josh Shapiro has told them not to count either.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting because it's election denial. Like even on small example, but even on Wikipedia, they took out Senator-elect on Dave McCormick's Wikipedia
Yep.
page.
Same with Ballotpedia.
Yeah. And what you said about the slow Congress races, especially out west in California and Arizona and Colorado, I agree. It's disturbing. They shouldn't. If you watched those states in Arizona and Nevada, especially, they were announcing like one congressional race a day, really,
Yeah.
if that. It was strange that two states that are supposedly modern in the way they count their ballots were the slowest.
Yeah. And if you look at Wisconsin with Eric Hovde versus Tammy Baldwin, there was a 4 a.m. like spike in the Democratic ticketing, and that ended up pushing Baldwin over the top. And I'm curious how that ended up happening, because
Yeah.
it's very similar to what happened with Biden in 2020.
Yeah, I went to bed at 2:30 thinking Hovde won that,
Yeah.
and then when I woke up, he didn't.
And there were other factors precipitating that as well. Like there was a libertarian on the on the ballot, and there was some other third party on the ballot that the Democrats were funneling money into in order take votes away from Hovde to ensure that Baldwin would come out on top because of the split ticketing. So it's really interesting to see them supporting other parties' candidates in order to try to benefit their own.
According to one of my blogs, there's still 4 CDs that are in the toss-up. They're not counted yet.
Wow.
One of my blogs has the tracker on it. There's 4 CDs, I think 2 of them in California, that still have not been totally called.
I was in
And
California this
it's-
weekend for a conference, and yeah, I believe there is 2 seats not called yet.
And they just called one in Ohio today.
Yep, so now it's down to 3.
Yeah, and that one was called for the Democrats by a very
Was it a
slim.
flip?
They held it originally. I
Okay.
think she's been the incumbent since 1983,
Okay.
but it's still a swing seat. It's the Sandusky neighborhood,
Oh, yeah.
Cedar Point, and
That's
all that.
Union.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see U.S. Congress then, because it looks like they're going to be the ones with the tight margin now. We only have 218, with
Yeah.
still only a few more. Like, we're going to have the majority, but might be by, if the Dems keep those 3 seats or flip those 3 seats, that's 1 seat
Yep.
majority.
And it concerns me because, I mean, we had such a tight majority this past biennium in Congress, and they got nothing done. I believe it was considered the most ineffective Congress in U.S. history. I think only like 35 bills passed. So it'll be interesting to see now that we have a trifecta if that changes and if we're actually able to get things done. Because I think the reason it's so tight in the House versus the Senate is because people have lost faith in congressional Republicans to actually get anything done.
And comparing U.S. House to the New Hampshire State House, with a very tight majority as well, how much did we get done?
Oh, we passed a budget near unanimously. And we passed education freedom accounts. We passed a lot of reforms that no one thought would get passed. Or, Valerie, you had the college free speech bill that failed when we had a larger majority, but it was able to pass in this much tighter one.
That's true. I think in New Hampshire we know how to work across the lines. We know how to be bipartisan when necessary, and with that close majority, really everything had to be bipartisan. And John and I had experience with that, so we did get some
Oh, yeah.
things through. You mentioned the budget. I believe that was on a voice vote as well. So
Yeah.
definitely we had both sides work together.
That's the first time in history that the budget ever passed by by voice vote, ever. And I talked to some senior folks on both sides. Steve Shirtless and I became very, very good friends. We were on different sides of the aisle, but we talked about a lot of stuff. We're both Vietnam veterans, so we had a lot in common. And he said it's the first time he ever remembered it, and his friends said it had never, ever passed by a voice vote. And it did by a good majority, which was really weird. It wasn't by 1 or 2 votes. It's a very good majority.
And moving to some dairy topics now, one of which will pertain to you guys too, and we were talking about it earlier. There's going to be a movement really soon in dairy for us to become a city. I know some people that are thinking about starting a charter commission here in town. And I think it's going to be a really interesting thing. And I say you'll be involved in it because the state legislatures, or general court in our case, are the ones that approve it. So, assuming that this all happens how I think it will happen, if that proposal comes up, 3 of you will vote on whether or not Derry becomes a city, which I think is really interesting. So, what are your thoughts on it?
Of course, you looked at me first.
Well, you're from Derry.
I'm
so
from Derry.
You'd
All
know
right.
the most.
I've lived in Derry since 1976. So I'm finally a townie. I got 40 years. And I lived under when May Caston was mayor.
When we had a mayor.
We had a mayor council, and we dissolved that through the legislature. Now it's just town council. It's going to be interesting. I know the players involved, so I don't think I should opine upon this issue at this time.
Well, Salem recently went through something similar it was our fifth attempt at having a charter, and finally on the fifth attempt we passed one. Prior to that, Salem was the largest town in the state to not have a charter, so we're just governed by the state statutes. And during that process, we had a commission, the whole 9 yards, and I thought that the commission was very responsive to citizen input, so they even had surveys go out and forms people filled out, and they said, do you want to become a city, because that was up for play. And overwhelmingly, Salem was against it, for a number of reasons. One being we would have to have wards and a mayor. Now, in terms of wards, I mentioned earlier we have 5 polling places. The population's not distributed evenly, so that would restructure the rep races as well. And it is a Republican stronghold, Salem, very much so. We would probably lose one of our 9 seats, which have currently been held by Republicans, and within my lifetime have always been held by Republicans. Would probably break that and have at least 1 Democrat, 8 Republicans. So for a number of reasons, Salem decided against this. We ultimately decided to stay a town, but instead have a town council as opposed to the Board of Selectmen we had. I'm not too knowledgeable about the situation in Derry, but if it's similar, I would imagine there might be an incentive to stay as a town.
And most of the argument comes from the school board.
Oh,
which,
yes.
Which everyone who watches this
Because
show knows
if
about.
you're a city, the school board becomes one of the departments of the city.
They do not get free reign like our school board does and has.
That's right. They would fall under the tax cap.
They would.
And I don't think they would like that.
Not the
Just
current
my
one.
honest opinion.
I mean, speaking as the only city kid here, Franklin is the smallest city in the state of New Hampshire. I think I think Somersworth might fight us for that, but I'm not positive. Yeah, the school board does not like the tax cap, and other departments within the city try to get around it at times. Especially right now, there's some controversy surrounding our city hall, which needs extensive renovations. They passed an $8 million bond to renovate it, and our city hall is also an opera house. So the Opera House Foundation is supposed to pay about half of the bond. So the question is, can they get the grants to pay for it? And if not, that is going to fall as a burden on the taxpayers. So that's a concern. And really, it just begs the question if it's something that the city can really afford when we can't even afford to fix our roads. So there are a lot of concerns like that, but the tax cap usually holds and keeps them accountable. So.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, I do want to congratulate our new school board member, Jennifer Thibault. She was sworn in at the last meeting and was chosen unanimously by the board. Very intelligent lady, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she does on the board. And she will be up in March with the other 3 seats. And again, just reminding anyone that lives in Derry, we're going to have 4 school board members on the ballot. We're going to have a teacher's contract on the ballot. The $25 million construction bond will be on the ballot. And the budget, which will be over $100 million, is also on the ballot. So go to the deliberative session in February. All right, we're almost out of time, so feel free to give any closing statements.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm really excited to work for the people of Franklin and Northfield and to be able to serve them in the House. I'm looking forward to this next session because I think we're going to get a lot of stuff done for the people of New Hampshire.
Yeah, thank you again for having us, and I have to echo those remarks. Really excited to begin my 2nd term and to represent the people of Salem as well as New Hampshire as a whole. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm trying to be responsive through my website, my email, and social media outlets as well. So please stay in touch.
Well, Sam's House is Derry. These are my folks up here. They know how to get a hold of me because they have gotten a hold of me. Telephone, email, Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I don't tweet. But Facebook, you need something, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, get a hold of me.
And thank you all for coming on today. Thank you to everyone watching. This is the season 5 finale. I'm going to take a break till maybe February, March, something like that. I've done over 50 shows now. The show's grown quite a bit. I'm really happy with how much we've progressed. We've gotten a lot better, both on camera and behind the camera. I want to thank the whole Derry Cam crew. They're the best. We I've said it a few shows, but we are nominated for some awards for the Northeast Alliance for Community Media. That will be in December. I'll have those results when we start back up again in next year. And yeah, when we return next year, we'll have a new president. The State House will be in full swing. The U.S. Capitol will be in full swing. And I'm excited to see where we are as a country in a couple months, because it's going to look quite different. All right, I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ass. Thank you for watching.